Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. So, remember when I said last week I was expecting a slowdown on the charts? Well, thanks to three factors, I'd argue I was probably pretty wrong in that department. Because if you're looking for a certain shift in the charts, you might conclude it was a pretty busy week. Now, that's not entirely the case. Indeed, look into the details and you'll see a pretty average or maybe even slower week. But I would say it is more transitory as the holidays rotate out for whatever is going to come this month. And nowhere do things appear more static than in our top 10, where somehow, for yet another week, Perfect from Ed Sheeran and Beyonce holds that number one. And while its streaming does continue to show some signs of weakness, with it holding the top spot on sales and definitely the radio now, I'm not seeing that immediate challenger, except that Havana by Camila Cabello featuring Young Thug is making a serious play, rising up to number 2 on stronger streaming and YouTube and not lagging that far behind on the radio. With the album dropping pretty soon, it could get the boost it needs. No such luck for Rockstar by Post Malone featuring 21 Savage, good, as it fell down to number 3 on sales weaknesses despite strengths in other categories. And on that bizarre note, we also saw a boost for Thunder by Imagine Dragons up to number 4 based on sales gains that seem to come out of nowhere. Now granted, some of that is likely due to a more consistent radio presence than a song like No Limit by G-Eazy featuring A$AP Rocky and Cardi B down to number 5, which might have rebounded on streaming, but the radio and sales recovery are nowhere near what it really needed to get higher. Compare this to Bad at Love by Halsey, which unfortunately surged up to number 6 thanks to consistently strong airplay and a streaming boost actually compensating for its much weaker sales. Even if you don't like it, it's got a little bit more traction. Something that I can't really say about Too Good at Goodbyes by Sam Smith, even as it is up to number 7 despite awful sales thanks to a big radio recovery. I don't really see it having extended traction though. Hell, it took the spot of Motorsport by Migos featuring Nicki Minaj and Cardi B at number 8, although more of that might have to do with an awful sales week that it had itself. But the real big loser was Gucci Gang by Lil Pump down to number 9, where not only where the sales were even worse, it also is starting to lose some streaming too, and I mean YouTube can't keep it afloat forever. And finally, likely holding on to the last bit of its relevance as the year turns over, Bodak Yellow by Cardi B is at number 10, because even though the radio is rotating it out, it's always made good numbers on sales and streaming. It is vulnerable, and thus far, it's got a little bit of stability, but for how much longer? And thus on that note, we move to our losers and dropouts, and here's where I break the stunning news. We don't really have any. Seriously, the dropouts are either Christmas Music, Huncho Jack, or The Race by Tay-K, and none of that is remotely relevant. And we literally did not have a single song to lose 10 spots or more to qualify for being a loser on this list. And yet we had a significant number of returning entries and a lot of gains with strength in every category, which makes a certain amount of sense given that Huncho Jack was mostly dominant on streaming and Christmas radio, that is a thing, especially on country stations. And thus, while we got returns like Wanted You by Nav featuring Lil Uzi Vert at 97, or When We by Tank at 96, or Never Be the Same by Camila Cabello at 71 with the upcoming record, the biggest songs re-entering, or at least the most of them, were in country, with Broken Halos by Chris Stapleton back to 91, All On Me by Devin Dawson at 87, Heaven by Kane Brown at 82, and unfortunately, Female by Keith Urban at 93. And following in the wake of last week, the gains either came for 2017 songs on their year-end final win, or rushing to fill the gaps coming in for 2018. In the former category, I would not expect songs like Feel It Still by Portugal and Man at number 12, or Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift at 55. I don't expect these to stick around. You probably have better luck with your viral successes like Crippy Kush by Farruko, Nicki Minaj, Bad Bunny, 21 Savage, and Russian continuing up to 75. But if you're looking for that radio rebound, it came in a huge way with country. Like I Love You by Brett Young up to 46, Yours by Russell Dickerson up to 52, Round Here Buzz by Eric Church to 57, I Could Use a Love Song by Maren Morris up huge to 62, Losing Sleep by Chris Young to 63, Written in the Sand by Old Dominion to 70, 5 More Minutes by Scotty McCreery to 78, Legends by Kelsey Ballerini to 79, and even crap like You Broke Up With Me by Walker Hayes up to 67, and that barely qualifies as country. But it wasn't all that genre, but it'd be tough to define any consistent factor of our remaining gains, from Let Me Go by Haley Steinfeld, Alesso featuring Flora Georgia Line and Watt to 40, Latin songs like Echama Le Culpa by Louis Fonsi and Demi Lovato to 64, and Mayores by Becky G featuring Bad Bunny to 81. Then you got Too Much to Ask by Niall Horan to 86, Juice by Yo Gotti to 90, and even Mic Drop by BTS featuring Designer to 66. Frankly, I am stunned this has stuck around as long as it has. But now on to our new arrivals, and we've got a strange crop indeed, starting off with number 100, Best Friend by Sofi Tukker featuring NERVO, The Knox, and Alisa Ueno.
Don't need to describe. Every time you call on me, I drop what I do. You are my best friend and we've got some shit to shoot. That's what it is.
Do you ever look at a song like this and think that there might be a few too many people involved with it? I mean, seriously, both Sofi Tukker and The Knox are American electronic producer duos. NERVO is a duo from Australia, and we're throwing in a Japanese singer, Alisa Ueno, as well? Of course, the larger question is that if there are that many hands, whether or not they can make a good song, especially if it was originally used as a commercial for the iPhone X, which is why this got popular, and I'm not remotely convinced that it did do well. Yeah, I will say that I dig the thicker bass groove and the blast of horns against the noisier percussion line, and I'll even excuse the pitch-shifted vocals from The Knox or the multi-track vocals from NERVO. But what does Alisa Ueno add to the song besides non-rhymes and an increasingly clumsy flow? And furthermore, this is a song supposedly about friendship and celebrating those best friends. Does anyone else feel that the groove is here way too dark and slinky than it needs to be? I don't know, it's not bad, but it feels overstuffed in kind of an awkward way. I'm not really sure how long it'll stick with me. Not bad, but not exactly good either. Number 95, The Greatest Show by Hugh Jackman, Keala Settle, Zac Efron, Zendaya, and The Greatest Showman Ensemble. Okay, let me establish this right out of the gate. I really like musicals. I think I've said it before, but the added caveat to all that is that I've seen a lot of musicals as well, and thus I know when things go off the rails. And when I heard a lot of the very negative buzz surrounding The Greatest Showman, well, let's just say I was looking to keep some of my distance. But we got 4 new songs from this musical that charted this week, so let's start off with the title track, for lack of better words. And look, I know that productions like this are aiming for mainstream acceptance. They need to sound a little bit more modern. But I'm sorry, do we really need a musical about P.T. Barnum, which I've already heard the original 1980s musical, to take some overwrought hammering percussion over melody approach? I mean, for God's sake, Hamilton was a hip-hop musical, and even then, Lin-Manuel Miranda knew how to ground his drum lines and rock-solid melody. The Greatest Show, meanwhile, is a mess of bassy drums, trap snares, millennial whoops, arranged instrumentation that feels increasingly slapdash, and Hugh Jackman trying to handle flows that are the last thing that flatters his more theatrical strengths and delivery. And it's not like the writing really helps this song here. Sure, it's an overture song, but there's no distinct or interesting detail to really set the stage in the way that the best overtures will do. So yeah, I'm not impressed by this at all. It's not very good. Let's see how the rest of these go, but before we get to those, number 92, Corazon by Maluma and Nego do Borel. So if we're talking about reggaeton artists I tend to like a little bit more, I would probably put Maluma reasonably high on that list. Most because he trends towards more organic production and some interesting subject matter, and yet in comparison to Felice Lo Cuatro, I'm not sure his work this time around connects. Yeah, I like the acoustic guitar and what kind of sounds like an accordion, but unfortunately the clunky reggaeton beat, this time accented with a lot of hollow scratches that don't really add much texture. And then you get the beat dropping in and the song just can't help but feel less distinct and more generic, especially with that synth behind what counts as a hook behind Nego do Borel. And that's the other thing. Putting aside this is a post-breakup song where he's clearly moved on to hook up with tons more people even as the girl comes back, the structure of the song feels kind of bizarre, with a trade-off of singers on the hook and the awkward placement of the bridge not helping any sense of momentum. Again, like most Maluma songs, it is kind of listenable. He's got charisma and I take him over many of his peers, but like with a lot of most modern reggaeton that crosses over, I question how much I'm gonna remember this song. And I can imagine you'll probably say that too. Number 88, Never Enough by Loren, Allred.
His hands could hold the world, but it'll never be enough. Never be enough for me.
So here's a major criticism of The Greatest Showman from somebody who actually knows the history of P.T. Barnum. You can tell that part of the story how Barnum brought renowned opera singer Jenny Lind to the States, and yet you don't use any of the arrangements or the songs that Lind actually sang, songs that are likely in the public domain right now, or hell, even put together a song with a classical arrangement to represent something that she would have sung. Now that's not to take away from Loren Allred, who's stepping into power ballad territory with remarkable poise, and it's kind of hard to screw a song like this up, especially with the strings and the piano that's holding everything together. But beyond a solid arrangement and her really terrific delivery, the writing and then underwhelming ending of the song don't exactly come close to putting it on the level of Let It Go or any of Hamilton's best ballads, and that's not even touching other contemporary musicals. Look, it's a good song, I like it somewhat, but with a little bit more creativity or something that actually played to what Lind made at the time, I think this could have been more interesting, and that says a lot. Number 85, Rewrite the Stars by Zac Efron and Zendaya.
You'd be the one I was meant to find. It's up to you, and it's up to me. No one can say what we get to be. So why don't we rewrite the stars? Maybe the world could be ours tonight.
So okay, I've come around on Zac Efron. He might have started off in some cringeworthy territory, let's be honest, but he's got tremendous acting talent now and some underrated comic chops. The sort of genuine triple threat who actually sounds good on a mic, who I can see getting some real acclaim in the right roles. Hell, I'd say most of the same things about Zendaya too, so putting them opposite each other should be a breakthrough moment for this musical. And they do have good chemistry on the song and the harmonies are not bad. But the problem, once again, is the material that they're working with. From the fizzy swells of synths, the gentle acoustics and the twinkling keys, and all the skittering percussion added in, it sounds like an instrumental jack from Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. And as much as he's proven to be a stand-up guy, he doesn't exactly make interesting music here. And what's exasperating is that there was potential for this. The possibilities of an interracial relationship in the 1800s, that's got tremendous dramatic stakes. But the book of this musical is way too toothless to directly engage with the subject matter beyond some broad symbolism. Again, not a bad tune, I probably like this more than the last one, but it should have been so much better. Number 83, This Is Me by Keala and the Greatest Showman Ensemble.
This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me.
So this was the song that was pegged as the big breakout track from this musical. Hell, it just won a Golden Globe. The big empowerment anthem from the bearded lady that shows how she'll stare her detractors in the face because this is her, this is who she is. And yet it's also hard not to say this is just another pop self-esteem anthem, complete with a greater focus on percussion, millennial whoops, and oddly wonky snare progressions. And yeah, Keala has a terrific voice, and she's working her ass off to sell this song. So why in the nine hells is there so much production gimmickry around her delivery that pushes her further back in the mix? And when you couple it with lyrics that can feel maddeningly indistinct and really kind of basic, it just doesn't stand out with the same power as it could or should. Now, I get why award shows love songs like this. They're inspirational, they're modern without being challenging or really all that interesting. But I'm sorry, everything I've heard from this musical thus far completely missed the mark for me. And when there's already a perfectly decent Barnum musical from the 1980s, I'll stick with that. They're not terrible songs, but this should have been better. Number 80, One Foot by Walk the Moon.
One step at a time, got your back if you got mine. Oh, one foot in front of the other. One foot in front of the other. One foot in front of the other.
Well, about time this crossed over. Seriously, this has been sitting just below the Hot 100 for months now, and while I'll be the first to say that that last Walk the Moon record wasn't really all that good, when you compare it to the rest of the Hot 100, they are a welcome presence, even if it's hard not to slot them into the similar brand of mostly forgettable indie pop rock with a song like this, which has its own millennial whoops and wonky percussion groove and increasingly shrill pitch shifting, especially around that whistling post-chorus tone, and that really sets me off a lot of the song. And let's make this abundantly clear, even despite a decent guitar groove, it's not remotely equivalent to a song like Shut Up and Dance, which is one of the best songs of 2015, even despite some wiry synth elements coming through for the foundation of that bridge that I actually kind of like. And yet, I think it's the lyrics that probably save most of the song. The blunt acknowledgement that even despite all the success, be it in life or love, they've got no real firm foundation going for the future, and thus the only way to go is just to go forward, because what else can they even do? Again, I'm not really crazy about the song, but hell, it's fine enough. Hope it does okay. And finally, number 35, Finesse by Bruno Mars and Cardi B. And now we got the biggest new track of the week, the sort of collaboration that probably gives label executives erections you can see from space. And yeah, I gotta be honest, I was looking forward to this too. A track that brings back New Jack Swing with two artists that could conceivably stick the landing. One of the better songs on 24 Karat Magic. I was excited. And yeah, surprising nobody, Cardi B stuck the landing with her verse, hopping on an old school 80s hip-hop flow with impressive poise, with a sort of effortless flexing that doesn't feel forced from her at all. She's showing herself a lot of talent here. Yeah, you can make the argument that her verse sounds kind of tacked on to the intro, or could have been a little bit more integrated more into the hook or the other verses, but as the guest MC just hammering out a verse that feels both modern and yet fitting to the callback era, she stuck the landing with this. And while my issue with some of the lyrics of Finesse, it is still here. Acknowledging that your lyrics don't make sense isn't quite enough to excuse it, Bruno. But you know what? He's got so much damn charisma, it's almost hard for me to care. And when you couple it with this slamming New Jack Swing, this is just so much up my alley, I can't help but really like this song. And yeah, Finesse, easily the best of the week. Good job for Bruno Mars and Cardi B. And the honorable mention though, it's narrow, but I think I'm just gonna give it to Rewrite the Stars by Zac Efron and Zendaya. One good song of that musical, if only because they have some great chemistry and the tune is pretty good. Worst, yeah, Greatest Show takes that. But dishonorable mention is going to Corazon by Maluma and Nego do Borel. It's pretty forgettable, and I really do expect more from a Maluma song at this point. Overall, bit of a weird week, but with Camila Cabello on the horizon, this could get very interesting very fast. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Balls.